Good morning and welcome back. Today I want to talk about the Canon RF 70-200 f2.8 lens. This lens has been fantastic so far and I'm really excited to finally talk about it. I've been kind of biting my tongue just until I got some real world experience with it so I could have something to talk about. But anyways, I want this review to center around why I purchased this lens as an amateur photographer, what I like about it, what I don't like about it, with some pros and cons sprinkled in there, as well as just my general impression of the lens, just in case anyone else is on the fence or in the similar situation that I'm in, where I want to buy professional gear, but I want to make sure that it's the right gear for me. So anyways, first up, we're gonna go through some close-up footage just so you can get a general idea of the texture of the lens and just get more acquainted with it up close. All right, first up on the docket is why I chose the f2.8 version over the f4 version. And this is a really important thing, especially when you're considering price and weight. But simply put, I chose this version over the f4 version because I want to grow with this lens as much as possible. As an amateur photographer, I have a lot of different interests, and I haven't set roots in any one particular interest as of yet, whether it's landscape photography or architectural photography or wildlife photography, and found that the extra stop of light was going to allow me to explore those interests a little bit deeper and to the best of my current ability. And so far, it has been absolutely worth it. I have really enjoyed that 2.8 bokeh that you get here and there, whether it's out in a field or in a forest or just looking at grasses. There are a lot of things that you can use that extra stop of light on just to get some abstract details or whatever it is. I also chose this lens, that is the 70-200 millimeter, because I was totally missing that range. I have 16-35 and 50, and that was as tight as that I could go. For me, getting a 70-200 millimeter lens was huge as far as my creativity and that ability to have innovative spark, essentially, where I was finding things or seeing things that I hadn't seen before from a 16 millimeter view. All of a sudden, my landscapes got a lot smaller and I was able to really focus on the composition of things as opposed to taking into account a massive place or a lot of different factors. So from that point of view, this has been a fantastic lens. Just being able to have the ability to zoom into 200 millimeters and see things from a totally different perspective has been incredibly, absolutely 100% worth it. All right, so let's dive into some of the things that I absolutely love about this lens. I love that it's very solid built. It feels well built in your hands. It feels robust. It's definitely heavy and has some heft to it. The tripod collar is metal, and the lens itself is made out of some kind of plastic composite, but it feels solid, like it doesn't flex or anything like that. There are rubber grips on the zoom and the focus rings, and what I really like is that the control ring back here actually has some haptic feedback, so you can hear it and you can feel it, and it's really satisfying to use the control rings on this lens. I know that the STM lenses don't have that feedback, so you kind of miss out on knowing exactly how much you're turning it. However, this definitely has that feedback and that feeling, and it makes it a lot more satisfying to actually use. I like that this lens has stabilizer options, different modes, up to I think like 5 or 6 stops, which is pretty impressive. And I like that it fits 77 millimeter filters. That's important because I have 77 millimeter filters for my other lens, and that makes it interchangeable. The lens itself is really sharp. I haven't noticed any softness that wasn't intentional or any image degradation from the lens itself. it's wonderful that way, and it feels and it performs well. Also have to say that I really appreciate this lens being on the RF mount system. It makes it a lot easier just to switch your lenses. I don't have to worry about having an adapter that I have to change between my lenses. I use an EF lens, and having an adapter can be kind of a hassle because it increases the length of the lens and the weight of the lens. And this way, I don't have to worry about that. I can just kind of plug and play, which makes it a lot, in my opinion, smoother of a transition when I'm changing lenses or using in the field. Okay, now that we've discussed some of the pros, let's jump into a few of the critiques that I have for this lens. And by no means are any of these critiques, or would any of these critiques discourage me from purchasing this lens again. I think it's just important to consider all aspects when you're making an investment like this. So first things first, let's talk about the throw of the lens. It can be somewhat difficult to get from 70 to 200 in one swoop. You might have to readjust. And I don't know if that's really a deal breaker for anyone out there, but it's just something to consider. There's some resistance there too, which is great if you want to lock in your focal length, but if you're just trying to zoom straight to 200 from 70 really quick, it might take the extra, half second to get there accurately or whatnot with care. So just something to think about. Another thing in the same vein is that this is a pump style lens. It's not an internal, so the lens is going to extend outwards, and this is great to save space, to make the lens physically smaller when it's retracted. However, the concern is that dust particles can get into the internal chamber of the lens through this pump action. I don't know, it's really the environment that you're shooting in, what kind of cleaning routines you have. Canon has said that it's totally fine and there's nothing to worry about, and I believe them. I think that they've really engineered this thing to sustain that kind of treatment, albeit within the normal range of use. So I wouldn't worry too much about that, but just something to think about. The size savings or the space savings ability of this lens is great, and that's probably on the plus side too. I think this is where some people would mention weight, and I don't think the weight of this lens belongs in any kind of drawback category. It's certainly small and relatively light for being an f2.8 lens, and quite remarkable actually. And it's 2.5 pounds or 41 ounces or thereabouts. And while heavy, certainly not unmanageable. And if you're going to invest in a lens like this, just know that this is on the heavier side and that you'll adjust. I've never considered leaving this lens at home due to its weight, and I just know that it's going to be a priority for me to take this wherever I go because it adds a lot of potential to my creativity. All right, wrapping this up, I think the expensive question of the day is this lens worth it for individuals who won't be making money off of it, i.e. amateur photographers and hobbyists? And I really think that the answer is yes, for the sole reason that equipment like this, while expensive, is worth it if it helps progress your craft or the thing that you love. This lens not only scores high in build quality and craftsmanship and sharpness, those things we expect from Canon, but I think on another level it unlocks something a little bit greater, and that is creativity. It allows the photographer to see through a window that I think is essential in progressing as a photographer and understanding landscapes differently. So at the end of the day, if you're on the fence about getting one of these, just do it. I know that's easier said than done, but I think it's worth it at the end of the day, and you'll be better for it. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps, and subscribe. That really, really helps. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.